All right, this is an important breaking news story because most of the mainstream media is covering it completely wrong, and we cannot let Republicans lie about this. So, just to be clear, early this morning, Trump backed down from his suicidal economic policy. The same policy that has inflicted global damage over the past few months, Trump backed down from. Now, the main headlines here that are very important is that Trump got zero substantial concessions from any country, but namely China. This morning, he blinked and he reversed his China tariffs, essentially reverting back to the mean tariff that we had before he took office. And he got nothing from China whatsoever. China was the one that he had his eye on and said he would make cave and essentially shift the way they trade with the planet. Yet Trump is the one that is implicitly admitting, or you can say explicitly, but I would argue that he is implicitly admitting that his trade policy was ineffective, unpredictable, it didn't work, and he needed to back down. Now, before we even jump into this deeply, because there is a lot to cover here, and again, it's incredibly important, let me just show you how the mainstream media is failing to cover this. MeidasTouch, shout out MeidasTouch, they point out networks must be more cautious when reporting Trump's so-called deals. His announcements often follow a familiar, deceptive pattern, declare a major breakthrough, only for the details to later reveal that nothing has actually changed. In the meantime, he gets the headlines he wants, the press amplifies the illusion, and the markets react based on fiction, not fact. Now, that is MeidasTouch pointing out how a lot of mainstream media networks take the bait. They'll take Trump's bait and they'll act like he took a massive win with tariffs, or at least they'll go with his narrative without even fact checking what he says, and that gives the impression that he's cutting all of these amazing deals when that's not actually happened. I mean, for example, a really good example is South Korea. Trump has been gloating this idea that he's right about to cut an amazing deal with South Korea and have effectively no tariffs, but the mind-blowing part is we had no tariffs with South Korea. Obama already did this deal in 2014, I believe, where we had effectively zero tariffs. We had almost free trade with South Korea, and this was all passed through Congress. So this was here to stay. Now, what Trump did is he removed that, and then he did his own sort of trade deal that will only last until the end of Trump's presidency. So what was a predictable, steady, zero tariff trade policy with South Korea is now a rocky, unpredictable, not even ratified through Congress trade deal, and he got nothing. So Trump tore this piece of paper up and then put it back together with tape and claimed victory. Again, you can't be the firefighter and the arsonist at the same time. Choose one, and with Trump, it's very likely that he's just going to be the arsonist. But to continue here, US and China have agreed to massively roll back tariffs on each other's goods for an initial 90-day period, de-escalating a global trade war, and we got nothing. Sorry, I have to keep saying that. We got nothing other than farmers being hurt, markets downturning, consumer prices will be raised, supply chains are freezing as I speak, and America's global credibility is strained. Other than that, we got nothing. We got nothing whatsoever. The announcement comes after a weekend of marathon trade negotiations in Geneva, in Switzerland, by officials from the world's two largest economies. Okay, so they had a weekend of blitz trade deals. What did we get from it? What concession did we get? Let's see if they say. The substantial, if temporary, agreement was unexpected. Just last week, Besant sought to manage expectations by suggesting that his goal for talks was de-escalation. Okay, wait. Please, please, please. The goal of the talks was simply de-escalation, but who escalated in the first place? This is literally like me putting a gun to everybody and saying, all right, we're going to start negotiation here, and all that I want is just de-escalation. I want everybody to de-escalate here. It's like, wait a minute, dude, you're the one that just escalated. You're the one that started this all. How is the goal now simply de-escalation? It is blowing my mind. Let's be real. We got nothing in return. We got no major changes in China's trade policies. We got no changes in global capital flow, no structural reform, just a vague pledge to talk more. They're just going to talk, which is what they've been doing for the past few months. And now Trump is already patting himself on the back, trying to rewrite history. So just to back up one more time, first of all, if you appreciate my truthful analysis, all that I ask is that you drop a like on the video. A lot of people say they keep getting unsubscribed from the Mockler channel. So scroll down, resubscribe to the Mockler channel. But secondly, we cannot let the mainstream media lie about this or go with Trump's narrative. MeidasTouch made a great point here that I read a few minutes ago when they say Trump gets the headlines in the press that he wants because they amplify his illusion rather than fact. The fact is, we got nothing. The fact is, when you go into a negotiation, you want concessions from the enemy. You can't just escalate and escalate and escalate and then revert back to the mean. So, I mean, what did we pay? We didn't get anything, but what did we pay for this little experiment in economic brinksmanship? Well, we made ourselves look unstable on the global stage. We proved that America can't be relied on to hold a consistent trade policy. And please remember, for the average American, most households can't even afford a $500 emergency. The average American doesn't have $500 on hand for an emergency, yet we're playing games with the prices of food, electronics, clothing, medicine, everything. We're playing with the prices of everything, and even if Trump removed all the tariffs today, which he didn't remove all of them, but even if he just removed everything, it still wouldn't fix things. I mean, we would still be seen as unstable. Actually, you would be seen as more unstable. Because again, how are any companies supposed to move into the US when they don't even know what the trade policy is going to look like for the next year, nevertheless the next 4 years, nevertheless the next 20 years? Mark Cuban made a great point. He was saying, hey, when a company wants to move into the US, they need to know for the next 20 to 30 years that they will see a return. They don't even know if they'll see a return for the next 3 months. Why would they move here for the long haul? So the long-term risk, I think, with a move like this is now both countries are using these pauses to decouple. Slowly but surely, the US and China both will prepare for a future where they don't need each other. They'll decouple from each other, and that doesn't end in peace. That ends in more confrontation. That ends in more, I don't know, soft, cold wars with China regarding technology and AI. And this is all because of Trump. And I'm not saying we should move towards China and be their best friend, but I'm saying that we at least had our finger on the scale through trade. Having a strong trade relationship with them allowed us to enact repercussions like tariffs. Entering China into the World Trade Organization gave us a mechanism to hold them accountable through the World Trade Organization courts. And now, if the US and China decouple at a speed that Trump wants to see, we won't be able to hold them accountable, and then we're going back 20 years. The speed of the talks' progress seemed to even surprise US Trade Representative Jamieson Greer. Jamieson Greer is always surprised. Do you guys remember a while ago when Trump removed his Liberation Day tariffs? Jamieson Greer was the guy who was being interviewed, who was testifying in Congress at that moment, and he didn't know what happened. They had to tell him in the moment, and he's our US Trade Representative. Quote, it's important to understand how quickly we were able to come to an agreement, which reflects that perhaps the differences were not so large as far as we thought. The Trade Representative Li Chenggang had hinted at the tariff cuts when pressed by a reporter on Sunday. Quote, as regards the timing of the release of the joint statement, as we say back in China, if the dishes are delicious, then timing is no matter. Now, Beijing's upbeat and positive tone stands in stark contrast to its previous statements about the trade conflicts with the U.S. Honestly, of course China is upbeat. They just got a win on the US and they had to make zero concessions. 90-day truce. Analysts give cautious welcome to US agreement. Analysts welcome the announcement that the United States and China will slash tariffs at each other's goods for a 90-day period on Monday, but warned against over-optimism. And by the way, can I clarify? Trump pausing these tariffs is a good thing. But it's a good thing in the same sense that if he were holding a gun to my head and he removed the gun, I would say that's also a good thing because he is no longer holding a gun to my head. So it's a good thing only in the sense that he is removing his suicidal economic policy. Sorry for the descriptive words using the word suicide, but literally it would have been that. It would have hurt both countries, all countries, to an insane degree. This is a substantial de-escalation, said Mark Williams, chief Asia economist at consultancy Capital Economics. Now, the thing is, Trump and his admin are claiming the concessions from China will come in talks over the next few weeks, but they're not going to. We don't have any. What leverage do we have anymore? We blew all of our leverage by placing insane tariffs and then showing we're not serious enough to keep them. I'll leave it at that. If you appreciate the work that I do, drop a like, subscribe. You can become a member below by clicking the join button. It would mean the world to me, and I'll see you all in the next video. Bye.